This is not the blood of a chosen one.
2021's Mortal Kombat is the latest HBO Max event movie where a bunch of cultural titans fight each other. Only this time it's not cats versus mice or monkeys versus lizards, but instead more a godlike creature from another planet versus a dude from your neighborhood gym. And there is definitely reason to enjoy it. Some of the fight scenes are very well choreographed and executed. Some of the visual and physical effects are very visually striking. And I also like the mentality that a lot of these characters aren't in their known forms right away, but instead develop into them throughout the story. Plus, respect to Warners for not chickening out on the goriness of the source material, like they really went for it. But ultimately, all that good stuff being said, the harsh truth is that Mortal Kombat does still very much fall victim to the infamous video game movie curse. Meaning that even though you can totally love it as a fan of the source material, if you come into it purely as a moviegoer who knows nothing about it, you can pretty quickly see that, oh yeah, it's a video game movie. It neglects basic movie things like emotion and logic to forcefully recreate the style of the games. It sacrifices the quality of story and characters to two-dimensionally repeat the narrative crux of the games. I mean, overall, this film is a slave to its video game origins that must serve those origins no matter how much it hurts it as a film. And to be clear, the point here with all this isn't to take away anyone's love of Mortal Kombat as a video game movie. Like, you can love it however much or little you want. The point here is to identify the key factors about Mortal Kombat that create this segregational line of being a video game movie, to potentially find out how that line can be broken. Because the thing is, in order for video game movies to one day become truly mainstream like comic book movies, they have to be able to appeal to general audiences, something which Mortal Kombat doesn't really succeed at. And so today, let's look at Mortal Kombat and some of its harmful problems born from the video game movie curse, how those problems manifest, how they can be avoided. Here's a few key things to keep in mind when making a video game movie that you want to be viewed and enjoyed as just a movie. Oh, but very quickly, I want to first resolve the controversy from my recent Godzilla vs. Kong video. Basically, I was talking about the Martha test and the issue with using half measures when resolving the goal of one of your versus movie opponents. And even though the lesson itself is very important to learn, a lot of you were saying that my example was off, that Godzilla's goal was actually fully completed. And if you thought so, I'm sure you're right, I probably just missed something.
I've made a severe lapse in my judgment.
And so, as a sort of peace offering for wrongly criticizing a movie a lot of you really liked, I once again bothered my friend over at Display, this website that makes these high quality metal sheet posters. They've sent me a bunch of them to give away, like this really cool Avengers one, so if you live near the capital of Krakosia, tweet at me and you can come pick one up. And for everybody around the world, they were also willing to sponsor a 2-week special Filmento audience discount where you get 27 to 33% off everything on their site. Just for 2 weeks though, that's all I could get. If you don't know, they have over 1 million designs from movies to games to whatever, and their official partners are the likes of Marvel, DC, different game companies, and also Star Wars, which is actually running a special Star Wars Day promo on May 4th. So check them out with the discount link below and also see some designs that I recommend. But yeah, hopefully we can now all still be friends and move on. First off, Mortal Kombat consistently recreates the main point of the video games regardless of how illogical or forced or emotionally empty it might feel. That main point being these MK characters fighting. For example, early on in the movie, our MMA hero Cole is out having dinner with his family when our main villain Sub-Zero shows up to hunt him down, prompting this other hero Jax to show up to save them and explain what's going on.
Means you've been chosen.
Chosen? For what?
To fight. As long as you got that market, they're coming for you. So like it or not, Cole, you're the guy.
But then Jax for some reason turns to an alleyway instead of driving away and decides to stay behind to handle Sub-Zero alone so that Cole can take his family to safety, which of course then leads to... And the issue you'll find is that no matter how cool the fight between Jax and Sub-Zero might be, in the context of the movie, there's no logical reason for it to happen. If the dragon marking makes Cole valuable and Jax has that same marking, why would he endanger himself for no reason? Why not just drive away? It's not like Sub-Zero has been shown to be Frozone who can keep up with the car. There is nothing forcing Jax to stop and engage in this fight. Like, dude, this is a supernatural warrior who can control an element of nature, and you have a gun.
And even though in a video game these two can be presented as equally matched, not so much in a movie.
Imagine if in Terminator, Kyle Reese just immediately told Sarah Connor to drive away alone and then followed Arnold into a warehouse to fight him one-on-one. Like, what?
Done 6 to us, motherfucker.
And so ultimately, when Jax then loses the fight and seemingly dies, it's like, well yeah, that was kinda dumb and pointless. As another example, look at the desert scene sometime after. Basically, Cole has now teamed up with Jax's friend Sonya Blade as well as Kano, who also has the dragon marking and is kinda letting Sonya know that, which then escalates into...
You want it so much, all you gotta do is kill me. Take it.
It's your blood.
Let it go.
And what you'll notice about this tiny fight bit is the lack of any emotional justification behind it. It's not like Kano has been repeatedly demeaning Sonya for not having a mark to the point where she now actually snaps at him. It's not like she's impulsively enraged in a way that makes the tussle seem real. It's not like she has to actually hold herself back from killing him. No, they both just agree that let's scrap, and then they scrap, which carries no purpose and feels like nothing. This lack of justification keeps the fight really short, but it's still long enough to do harm for later, since now that we've seen Sonya beat Kano once, the challenge of her beating him at the end seems that much less challenging, because even though he does have laser eyes, then she already once beat him and so should be able to do it again.
Well, I've seen you kick his ass before, but he's got a laser now. Watch out for that.
Oh, I got an idea.
And it's almost always something similar. We fight a random lizard who randomly appears without any lead up or build up or any real narrative consequences. We have a long section of casual training fights that pack as much power as white noise. I mean, there's this whole big second act finale fight sequence where the movie introduces new villains just to kill them off in the next scene, as if this was an unironic take on Deadpool 2.
Nice!
The great hunter, Natasha.
We don't fight Sub-Zero here for some reason. We don't fight anyone we've built up or established an emotion-driven relationship with. We just fight all these different empty, cool-looking bad guys from the games. Some fights are better than others, but others are at the point where the characters actually care so little that they'll leave each other alive or just like leave.
Mother is calling.
To really see the difference, look at the opening of the movie. This Japanese warrior finds his family killed by Sub-Zero and then goes on this enraged rampage in an effort to take him on one-on-one. This fight is logical, it's purposeful, emotionally powerful, it feels like it means something, it functions as a movie regardless of the origin. And that's what you should always strive to do. Whatever the point of your game, that point has to be born organically within the context of your film, and not from the mentality that, well, the games are about fighting, so that's what we're gonna do here now, no matter what. Secondly, Mortal Kombat is in such a rush to cram in as many narrative elements from the games as possible that it comes at the cost of its own story and characters. In a nutshell, that game narrative is that there's this other savage world that wants to kill the Earth's chosen Mortal Kombat fighters before a galactic tournament so that they can successfully invade the Earth, which we know because the movie immediately tells us all this both audibly as well as in text.
Winning Mortal Kombat cannot be left to chance. There will be no tournament because There'll be no opposition left to fight.
And it's this mentality of game lore galore that poisons this movie. Take for example Cole, our main MMA fighter hero who mostly just loses fights for a living. Until one day the Mortal Kombat lore then pushes him on this great adventure. Like literally pushes him. He gets saved from Sub-Zero by Jax and then gets told all this stuff about his dragon mark and that he needs to go see Sonya Blade.
It's not a birthmark, Cole.
He goes to see Sonya Blade and Kano and then gets told all this stuff about the Mortal Kombat tournament and that they need to go to this training place.
Hey, you listen to me. I think there's another tournament coming. That's why you're here.
He goes with them to the training place and, well, you know.
The point of your training now is for you to unlock that power without defeating our entire human.
Basically, most of this movie for Cole and us is just a never-ending rapid fire of new helpful character, more lore, new helpful character, more lore, and so on and so on.
You must unlock your Kana.
And the character problem with this is that it makes Cole into a boring blank shell whose only purpose is to be filled up and pushed by all this stuff from the games. He doesn't do anything, he doesn't have a personality, he's basically just an idiot who accepts every piece of received information at face value because the movie is already in such a rush to get to the next.
Alright, simple, but how do we know good old night, princess?
He'll leave his family because a random guy he just met told him to do so.
You heard what Jack said.
He'll train for a tournament he's never seen because these guys say it's really important.
You must fight without question.
I mean, overall, he'll hear and see the craziest shit imaginable and then just go with it like it's another day at the office.
806 West Washington Boulevard.
Are you sure? We can take him out together. Are you sure? We can take him out together.
And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
Are you sure? We can take him out together.
And the same thing also affects the story around Cole. See, because this movie doesn't force Cole to fight for and earn all this information and instead hands it out for free in order to do it as much as possible, all of it feels meaninglessly trivial. Being hunted by Sub-Zero isn't that big a deal when there's always someone there to take care of you and explain all you need to know. In fact, when there's an all-knowing God by your side already at the 40-minute mark, most things aren't that big a deal.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Like even when Cole finds out this life-changing truth about his lineage and connection to Sub-Zero, it's not like that happens through any kind of emotionally powerful taxing moment, but more like, oh, by the way.
You're a descendant of one of the greatest ninjas to ever walk the earth. He was murdered along with his wife and eldest son by the same assassin that hunts you now, Sub-Zero.
Okay, thanks. Bye.
And the same obsession with lore affects pretty much everything and everyone. When Cole shows up at Sonya's house alone, at first she's really worried about Jax.
Jax, where are you?
But then a few minutes later, she's already forgotten all about him because they now have to go look for the Mortal Kombat temple, which is fine because somehow Jax is magically there anyway. The motivation of the villain side is built entirely on this prophecy of Earth heroes uniting.
The prophecy is upon us, which means we could lose the 10th tournament.
A prophecy we're meant to take as gospel just because the movie says it exists, which mostly just makes us wonder why the super OP villains don't just wait for the tournament. I mean, the Mortal Kombat tournament itself is the very thing our whole purpose in this movie is to train and prepare for.
It is essential that we begin your training for the next tournament.
Even though neither we nor our heroes have ever seen it or in this movie ever will. Which is probably why the training section, for example, feels so insignificantly boring.
There will be no tournament because there'll be no tournament.
All in all, the lore of the game shouldn't drive your story or characters, but instead come to light through them. Cole shouldn't be given all these answers right away for free. He should be fighting to uncover them in order to survive one small piece at a time, like a big intriguing mystery. Because if you just hand out all this whatever outworld and prophecy stuff in the beginning in a way that is in no way meaningful, then in the context of this movie for audiences who aren't already familiar with its meaning from the games, meaningless is what it will be. Finally, Mortal Kombat is also so focused on filling its scenes and events with references to the games that it ultimately ends up hurting the very purposes those scenes and events exist for. One way this problem manifests is as the loss of basic believability, which you can for example see in the transformations of Jax and Kano. So like I mentioned, after the armless Jax has magically appeared in a training place, he then wakes up with these bionic arms, because that's how he is in the games, without any justification as to how that happens in the movie. It's not like we see Sonya giving Jax their latest military gear or something. No, suddenly the arms are just there because I guess centuries-old monasteries are known for their high-tech cybernetics.
We have sourced every realm to find a way to heal him.
Yeah, other realms and shit. Don't worry about it.
On top of which, the arms then inexplicably also roid up, because that's Jax's Mortal Kombat special strength, I assume.
I'm like a full-on juice head now, bro!
And at this point, we have no clue whether these arms are powered by electricity or God, or what had happened if he never lost his arms in the first place. But none of that matters, of course, because all that does matter is that he's now as he is in the games. Or look at Kano's transformation to be a villain, that I also assume is the case in the games, which here happens because...
You can have more money than you know what to do with. Hell, you could turn this old temple into your own casino if you wanted to.
So what would I need to do?
Right, Kano flips sides because of financial gain, which is pretty weird because it's already been established that our main goal is to stop the villain side from enslaving the Earth.
They will ravage everything.
Like, what are you gonna do with money in a post-apocalyptic world? What good is a casino when there's nobody there to visit it because everybody's too busy being enslaved?
And it's also strange how everything Kano does in this movie is motivated by money, even though it's never been established what he needs money for, especially since he seems like a guy who will just take what he wants without paying. But maybe that's something from the games as well.
$2 million.
And so again, the movie shrugs off all basic believability and only worries about portraying things as they are in the games.
I am no longer Beyond. I am Sub-Zero.
Okay, but what's the mask for?
Another way this problem manifests is as the collapse of established precedent. Like for example, we have this first training scene with Kano where the main point is to show that he is in need of training. And since Kano has been established to be a very aggressive fighter per that set precedent, this over-aggression should then be that weakness of his that needs work, right? Well...
Real cute. Let's see you throw down again.
Yeah, the whole scene is Kano getting tripped over and over again by the same sweep kick, which I'm pretty sure is some kind of move from the game. Which is cool and all, but now you're saying that the reason Kano needs practice is because he's too slow and casual of a fighter who lets himself be caught by the same move. Like, you're not being very consistent. And yet another way this problem manifests is as the loss of basic movie elements like stakes and urgency and intensity and so on and so on. You can see this in the training section, which lacks any kind of pressure because we have no clear deadline for when the tournament is supposed to begin, but the best example is this third act fight montage. Basically, our heroes just lost their fights to the bad guys and now come up with the idea of taking them on one by one, which then leads us to...
Fatality.
Right, so this whole montage exists mostly just to showcase our heroes' signature fight moves and whatever, and that's all it is. There's no build-up, no anticipation, no stakes, or intensity, or power, or anything a third act of a movie needs to have. It's just this cool, fun thing we suddenly do.
The only exception being Sonya versus Kano, which at least carries some of that to an extent.
Like, if we were actually worried about winning, we could have just had the Thunder God teleport the villains over one by one and kill them as a group.
Lord Raiden, can you send anyone anywhere?
There's no film reason for us all to fight alone at the same time. But then again, who cares, cause... I mean, this reference issue goes as far as to completely depower even the greatest of scenes. Like at the end, for example, Sub-Zero manages to lure Cole out alone, leading to this actually really intense fight not only for our life but also for the lives of our family. So strongly so that even Cole begins to grow into an actual real person who...
Get over here!
Yeah, so just when the finale has been placed on Cole's shoulders, his dead ancestor from the beginning shows up to basically free him of that weight, like so many times before. And just like that, even this truly intense stakes-filled battle is reduced to something less, because not only is our OP ancestor there to help, but it also turns out that in this world, even basic things like death mean nothing.
You think you have won, but death is only another portal.
To be clear, again, the issue isn't so much what happens as it is how it happens. Like, if you want to have Sub-Zero face off against Scorpion, that's great, but couldn't you, for example, do that by making Cole become the new Scorpion in this movie so that the finale still remains on his shoulders? I'm not saying that's the answer, nor am I saying this finale isn't good or enjoyable. All I'm saying is that when you make references or anything we've talked about today relating to your video game source material, you have to acknowledge that most of your potential audience will not care. You can scream "get over here" and "fatality" and whatever all you want,
Flawless victory.
but acknowledge that most of your potential audience will not care. And so ultimately, whenever you make these decisions, ask yourself, am I making a movie that functions as a movie, or am I making a video game movie that requires the video game to fully function? That right there is the video game movie curse in spoken words. And it's only after you acknowledge it that you can finish it.